Namaste. On behalf of Chairperson FLO Hyderabad, Usharani Manne, and her committee, I welcome you all to an afternoon of revelations, reflections, and recommendations on the topic Meritocracy in India, Reality or Utopia. Let's commence the afternoon's program with the lighting of the lamp by Chairperson Usharani, followed by her welcome address.
Namaste. It's my honor to welcome our special guest, Mr. Rahul Shivshankar, past FLO presidents, past chairs, fellow chairpersons, FLO members, and viewers to this afternoon's conversation on the very important matter of meritocracy. Meritocracy was meant to be an ideal society where power and privilege are assigned by individual merit and not by social origins. But many argue today that it is a self-undermining ideology that is fostering a sense of entitlement based on ability. Also, whatever else corporate culture handbooks may say, a tough manager is presumed to be an effective leader, and an empathetic manager is often seen as a low-impact leader. Clearly, because we are now increasingly basing our decisions on data. Today, the inimitable Rahul Shivshankar will share with us his views on whether meritocracy is still an ideal to aspire to, or if it is fast turning into a burden. Thank you, Rahul, for joining us here this afternoon. I can well imagine how busy you are as editor-in-chief of Times Now. But the way you responded to the message I left on your phone so positively and so quickly reflects your innate professionalism and openness. Priya will now give us a quick snapshot of Rahul's illustrious career from a reporter to heading one of India's most respected news channels. Thank you, Priya. Over to you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Usha. Rahul Shivshankar began his career as a print reporter, pounding the streets and then Delhi's courtrooms for stories. As a beat reporter for the Times of India at the start of his career, over 20 years ago, he broke a record number of stories, and after just 13 months, he became one of the youngest ever leader writers at the paper. In 2005, Rahul was part of the original core team that launched India's most watched TV channel, Times Now, and went on to become the senior news editor. During this time, Rahul received much critical acclaim for his coverage of the 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks. Rahul worked very briefly with Headlines Today as the executive editor. In 2013, he moved to NewsX as the editor-in-chief and primetime anchor. Since December 2016, he has helmed Times Now as the editor-in-chief, playing a pivotal role in catapulting the channel to its current status as the #1 English news channel in India. Rahul anchors shows such as India Upfront and Confront, both of which have redefined the TV genre. Back to you now, Usha, to start the discussion.
Thank you, Priya. Today's talk has been formatted as a roundtable discussion. So my thanks to all the past presidents, past chairs, and YFLO chair for participating today. I would like to start with a basic question that will help us establish the premise of the discussion. Rahul, both intelligence and skill are relative. In this context, what is the absolute definition of merit and meritocracy?
Well, I would like to fall back on the work of a philosopher, a political philosopher called John Rawls, to answer that question. Someone asked him once, if you were given the opportunity of being born on this planet, would you have a preference? Would you want to be born in a rich family or in a particular country? Then he began to think about it and he said, it is a very close question, because if I were born in sub-Saharan Africa, even if I had both intelligence and skill, I may never be able to realize my potential. And he said, what a sad world it is which defines your life chances by your accident of birth. And from then on, he began to engage in how to make the world better, more a world that easily responds to both skill and intelligence and allows people to realize their potential. And because of his work, and most of it has today gone into our constitutions, the entire edifice of social justice was realized. And this particular individual's work today informs how we have begun to perceive our world, which is now a flatter world. A flatter world in which the power of the idea actually rules. You could be born anywhere, you could be born to any family, any circumstance, but if you have a powerful idea, and someone did refer to data, because we are today data-driven, your ability to synthesize data, your ability to interpret data, your ability to generate data. So the knowledge economy has really become preeminent, and therefore you have had a certain democratization of the process. Now, merit, and I want to classify this not in the traditional sense of the term, but merit really is about passion and initiative. You do not need to today have degrees or exceptional qualifications or go to an Ivy League college or a traditional university, which is obviously recognized world over to achieve success. Just look at the room around you, perhaps, and you will see people from different walks of life, different economic circumstances, who have broken through not just the glass ceiling of opportunity in this country, but also the mores of what is acceptable in terms of leadership. Now, this has happened not because you carried a degree or you were born to a particular set of privileged parents or a particular privileged circumstance, but it has happened because you have shown drive, determination, and you are today working in an environment which values that. And nowhere better do you see this transformation but in the political, socio-political environment where people who were once relegated to the margins of our society have come up through the power of democracy, really, and the strength of our institutions. And this is now universally accepted that India has one of the most robust democracies with one of the most robust institution capacities. Now, obviously, there will always be some degree of perfection to be acquired, but at the end of the day, we have made huge strides from a society where we were fighting against the scourge of casteism, which manifested itself in untouchability, denying people even access, forget about to material goods, just dignity. And today, because of the strength of our institutions that empower the idea, the real liberal concept of equality and freedom and justice, we are where we are today, seeing a slightly more flatter world than ever before. And I think that as we move forward through this chain of value that we have created, I think we're going to see a lot more transformation and a lot more egalitarianism in our society. So merit, we should not define as what is traditionally measured by yardsticks that we have constructed for ourselves, like education qualifications or grades or your ability to deliver on your particular goals that are ascribed to you by your corporation or your boss, but by your individual spirit and the power of the idea that drives you, the passion with which you can pursue it. I think if one can accept that as a definition, I think that we will have done a great service to the idea of building a meritocratic state.
Thank you, Rahul, for helping us understand and the two terms and appreciate the value they add to our lives. Now I'll move to, can you trace for us your journey to the position you are in now?
Well, I have to say that my journey has been a tough one, as one should expect it to be, because I don't come from a family that was very well off. I came from a family of government servants, and each of them were very honest professionals in their own time. So materially, we were not the best off. And there came a time when I had to decide between pursuing an education in the United States and balancing the books at home with regards to resources. And we decided that perhaps I would have to forego an opportunity to study abroad because I didn't get a 100% scholarship. I only got a 17% scholarship. And that really, I think, made me want to compete with the resources that are available to us here. So it is therefore, when I started to speak to you at the very beginning, I realized that today world leaders are not going to be defined by the quality of education they have received, but by their perseverance and their determination to fulfill certain goals that they might have set for themselves. And of course, their own intelligence, which could either be native or, of course, crafted under guidance. And I don't think that India today lacks in any way, in any capacity from institutions abroad when it comes to educating its students or its youth. And I think that if we are able to broad base that education system, you will have many more people who will not need to look to the West to be educated. So having said that, I realized that it would require for me to create my own opportunities. And I'm very, very happy that I did so without fear or anyone's favor. In fact, I'll tell you a little anecdote. I used to specialize really in door-stopping people. So whether it was Mr. Pranoy Roy or whether it was Mr. Dilip Padgaonkar, I used to stand outside their gate with my biodata, and a couple of times, and much to their credit, they rolled down their windows or they invited me in for an interview or for interviews. And I began my career really with some effect with the Times of India as a beat reporter. I had worked as an apprentice in other newsrooms, specifically in the very, very beginning with the BBC service, a Hindi TV service here in Delhi. But that was more of a job that was seeing me through the last few years of my college and the beginning of my career. But really, it was the Times of India that gave me this opportunity, completely serendipitous. I only had at that time, by the way of experience, the job that I had done as an apprentice and a couple of articles, or not even articles, letters to the editor that I had written for the Indian Express. And I have to say that is when it struck me that you don't need to be anyone famous or the son of somebody famous to get a job in this country. If you have the potential, there are enough people who are there to back your potential. And because I was so thankful for the opportunity, I really worked hard to ensure that I didn't let down Mr. Padgaonkar, who's no longer with us, of course, in this world. He passed away a few years back, but I owed a debt to him that I wouldn't let him down. And here I am today, working through the many challenges that a career like this throws at you. But I have to say that I'm thankful to all the people who repose their faith and trust in me.
Yeah, it's very obvious that you have played a pivotal role in catapulting the channel to its next level, Rahul.
Thank you. That's very kind of you to say. It's not just me. I think we're supported by a huge number of individuals. My colleagues, they're all dedicated to the cause and committed to the idea of journalism and to bringing out truth and fact so that all of you out there can make better sense of the world.
course, your commitment to bringing back the focus on hard facts and separate news from a mere rhetoric is recognized by all of us as viewers.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
I'll now invite our beloved past president, Flo, Neeta Buchra from Jaipur to ask her question. Neeta ji, please.
Thank you, Usha. Namaskar to everyone from the Pink City, Jaipur. May I take a minute before I ask the question, Usha? Usha, first, I wish to congratulate you and compliment you on the superb work being done by you in the Hyderabad chapter. And I know this professional approach of yours is coming from the 25-year-old, that you're heading this industrial organizations. So kudos and compliments to you. And also, I want to especially remark on the incubation startup and your roping in prestigious organizations like IIT, IHT, and WeHub, just to name a few. Keep it up. Keep the good work, Usha.
Thank you. Thank you, Neeta ji.
And thank you so much, Usha, to having Mr. Rahul with us today.
Thank you.
Mr. Rahul, my question to you. First of all, what we understood till now is that passion, perseverance, and gratitude, that is what drives you. Compliments again.
Thank you. Thank you
Coming to the topic, given the socialist nature of it, meritocracy can be a very bumpy road. As the head of a respected media house, do you think this is the ideal situation for growth, both for the people and the company?
Indeed, I cannot stress the importance of transparency. Now, if India wasn't a transparent democracy, a large number of grievances would never have been addressed. A large number of, as I see it, problems would not have been solved, and the truth would have been held hostage to the exigencies and interests of a coterie of people. So more voices, more opinions in a democracy only make it healthier. In a newsroom, makes it even healthier. I don't ever believe that societies where there is only one point of reference and one point of view, or individuals or running companies that don't tolerate what you are saying is a socialist sort of nature, where you can bring ideas, disparate ideas, contradictory ideas to the table, can ever succeed. Now, the more democracy you have, the greater chances of empowering people with the right decisions after making the right decisions. If we did not have conversations, and India is built, and let me tell you this, whether it is Max Muller or anybody else, they have credited India for being a civilization of ideas. Now, ideas can only flourish in an environment that allows for ideas to flourish. And if you have organizations or you have governments that do not allow for that, you will never hear the voices that are perhaps at the margins or voices that are disaffected, and you will never be able to build a unified country and strong institutions to carry all the people along. So whether it's a commitment to ensuring unity in diversity, or Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, one is a Nehruvian slogan, one is a Modi slogan. It just tells you that a commitment to engaging people, understanding and harnessing their views, opinions, ideas is paramount. And if you don't have that, you're done for. So it is a very ideal situation for growth to have people coming in, people expressing opinion. And we never actually, for the last 70 years, credit our political class for also engendering this. and this is very important. We always see politicians as individuals we must criticize because they haven't lived up to our expectations totally. It's good to have high expectations from our politicians, and it is good to put them under pressure. But sometimes we must recognize that unlike hundreds of other states around the world that have crumbled under the pressure of expectations, India has actually thrived under the pressure of expectations. You have had so much social justice reform in this country, and you have had it through the ballot, which is the most democratic process. If you have a voice, you press a button or you drop your ballot in a box and it gets reflected. You elect people and it gets elected, it gets reflected in parliament, which is the citadel of conversation, the citadel of churning and ideas. So I really do want to divest everybody of this idea that, meritocracy can only be achieved in linear systems. No, meritocracy is achieved today in open systems. And that's why corporate and business also very, quick on the uptake. A lot of pioneering ideas about human resource management break in corporate world. And whether it's open floor offices or newsrooms, why are we having open floor offices in newsrooms? So that every individual feels part of the process and you have empowerment throughout. And that really brings out the best in individuals and promotes a culture of meritocracy.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Rahul. Now over to Monica Agarwal, past chairperson, FLO Hyderabad, for her question.
Thank you, Usha. My question to Mr. Rahul is, how can media influence people to understand that they should choose their politicians on the basis of merit? For some of the other reason, politics is one area where merit is not really looked at.
Look, I would disagree with you. Obviously, there are still advantages, and this is universal, to be born in families that are already part of a business or part of some sort of structured enterprise. This is true from Bollywood to politics, and it covers a vast, even culture. You have the gharana concept. In fact, even Hyderabad has its gharanas. You have had royalty. You have had elite classes. You have Latyan zone. In this country, you have the Valkeshwars and the Malabar Hills. You have the Ballygunge of Calcutta. You have certain business families. And obviously, you will have entrenched political families also. But let me give you a quick assessment of what I believe the problem is. The problem is when certain politicians begin to assume that it is their birthright to lead, irrespective of their performance. What the media can do is to hold up the mirror to an individual or a party and tell them that, look, the world around you has changed. The expectations from the people that you are representing have changed. Social Darwinism is a great example. You see it in the corporate world. If a CEO or a manager or somebody who is assigned to sales and marketing is not delivering on their goals, they are removed from their post. If you are a very sympathetic, empathetic organization, you might evolve a different structure to take care of them. Maybe they're not good at what they're doing, so you may harness their abilities in another area. But usually what happens is that those people exit the system because they have not been able to deliver. Unfortunately, and that's where I agree with you, Monica ji, in some cases, whether you succeed, whether you're successful, whether you can deliver on the mandate, you are constantly back. And that is where the loop becomes a closed one. And then you begin to militate against the basic foundational ideas of this country, which is egalitarianism. 400 years back, there was a revolution in France. One of the words was égalité. If everyone begins to think that they have a right which is delivered by birth or their surname, etc., to be in a particular place, in a particular position of leadership, what are you doing? You're closing the entry points for fresh talent, for merit. And that really ossifies not only your democracy, as well as, of course, your entire intellectual atmosphere. And that leads to a collapse, complete collapse. So the media can only point out the lacunas of pursuing this kind of entitlement culture. Beyond that, our job is to inform you of the pitfalls, but beyond a point, we can't be interventionists, we can't become politicians. So the media must educate, must tell people that for these, sets of reasons, we must not vote for a particular type of mindset. But at the end of the day, since we're a democracy, the choice eventually lies with the people. That no one can influence beyond a point.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rahul. Now, Rekha Reddy, past chair, FLO Hyderabad, has a question for you.
Thank you, Usha. Mr. Rahul, pleasure listening to you.
Thank you.
Education and experience. You spoke about education. Both have a great influence in career advancement, politics or otherwise. Which do you think plays a larger role, and how do they affect career advancement, especially in India, if there's a separate scenario for India? So what do you think about that?
Look, social attitudes have changed towards experience. Very young people today, the ageist culture and the veneration of age for the sake of age has changed. So that much, we realize that, yes, life experience perhaps matters more. Your emotional maturity matters more than perhaps the number of years you might have performed a particular task. That is not in any way necessary for achieving excellence. And we see that, for example, in closed systems like the bureaucracy, where when you enter, irrespective of how you perform, because of your age, you get promoted. Now that builds a degree of inefficiency, and we need to reform that. But education is central, is very, very important. Education is important in the cultivation of the mind, because the mind is a repository of thought and ideas, and nothing succeeds like a good idea. And they say that this is a time of an idea, or this is the stage when a particular thought process will lead to the blossoming of enterprise and entrepreneurship. And you see that today around you in startups. What are startups really? They're powered not by huge amount of wealth. They're not powered by huge capacities. They're not powered by a huge number of people who are born to massive resource. No, they're powered by an idea. And an idea, to grow an idea, to incubate an idea, I heard someone using that term, incubate an idea. And I believe that you have been doing it exceptionally well in the FICCI FLO chapter in Hyderabad. You incubate an idea. How do you incubate it? In youth, you do it through great values, civilizational values. That is also a very, very important education. It is not just through rote learning or curricular learning. To inculcate values, to expand people's minds, make them accessible to thoughts, all lead to an open-mindedness that allow for the gestation and, of course, the growth of an idea. If you are taught to think very narrowly and completely shut yourself off from other stimuli, you may plow the furrow deeper, but you will never be able to expand that furrow and turn it into a big ravine of potential. So if your education doesn't teach you to be open-minded, if it doesn't teach you the Indic value of samvad, you can forget it. So our Indic culture, our Vedas, they tell you that the mind, the manthan that happens in the mind is perhaps the only thing that education should be directed to stimulate. If you can't do that, I'm sorry, you can't achieve anything. To answer your question, therefore, education more than experience today counts for a lot more. Of course, there is a role for experience, and there are professions where experience needs to be valued. But today, if you have the right values, the moral values, the intellectual values, the spiritual values, and you have an open mind and an education that has fostered that creativity and openness, you will succeed no matter how young you are.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Now I'll move to Josna Angara, past chair FLO Hyderabad and GB member FLO, will now ask her a question. Josna?
I agree with you that very well spoken, Rahul. Completely agree with you that coming from an Ivy League or the IITs, the IIMs really doesn't matter, but your perseverance, your integrity, all that does. Very beautifully said. So I have two parts to my question. The first is that, what's your opinion? I'm taking you back almost, I think, 28 to 29 years ago.
Yeah.
When the Mandal Commission came out with its recommendation. So it's really ages ago. What do you think of its relevance today? Do you think it's become archaic and needs to be relooked, especially because India has evolved quite a bit? Because in my opinion, I feel it needs to be relooked, which hasn't been done. And second thing is, I'm taking away slightly away from the topic of today, is no ill negativity in my intent in asking this question, but today's journalists come across as highly opinionated when reading news or interviewing a guest. One rarely sees them speak in a very calm manner, almost like a conversation doesn't seem to exist, where the content usually should get a major focus. Instead, many of them are very loud to the point of almost screaming, and highly animated again, that it's neither a conversation nor news reading, in my opinion, but sounds like a argument or even a session in the court of law, if I may say so. So what is true journalism to you?
Okay, two questions. I've noted down your question. No, it's very good. It's a great question to ask, and I'm very happy.
I ask my sister, who's a journalist too, this often, and we do have conversations on this.
Well, I hope I can be honest with you. But let me begin with the first part of your question. It's a very important question. Yes, of course, we all know that reservations based on identity were supposed to have been turfed out. They came with an expiry date of 10 years. Unfortunately, we have continued down the road of identity politics, and my political awakening took place, and you've taken me back to the time when I stood at the Ames crossing in Delhi, which was closed because students had come out in vast numbers to protest against the Mandal Commission findings, and Delhi was locked down. I was a 10th class student. I'm talking about 1990. Appearing for my board exams. It was winter months of November, December, if I'm not mistaken. And we had a virtual siege, and Delhi was not an exceptional case. You had a siege across the country in many pockets. I do believe today that identity-based reservations, we need to re-examine that idea perhaps and relook at that idea. And I was very gladdened when recently, and I'm not going to take names because it would be wrong of me to sound partisan, but one particular government, one particular prime minister staked his political capital by bringing out a 10% quota based not on identity, but on need. And I think that that is really the way forward. Today,
could you repeat that last bit? But
yeah,
on?
that one particular politician, one particular leader, one particular prime minister announced a 10% quota based on need, not identity. So you had a situation where somebody went against the grain. Now you can attribute motives to it, but the fact of the matter is that I think that we need to move towards a need-based, because we have great inequities in this country.
Yes.
And I don't believe that the identity-based quota is now reaching those that find themselves at the margin. So what is going to happen is, to reach those individuals, you're going to perpetuate identity-based quotas, and you're going to fragment society. The divide that we often talk about is the religious divide, but there is also a caste divide, which will continue to hold India back, because it will crustify the fault lines and prevent, as I said, the flow of ideas, thought, experience. So yes, I think we need to move towards a need-based positive discrimination mechanism. And I think the sooner political parties, lift themselves above vote bank politics, that should happen. That would be the best for the country. Do I believe that quotas should exist in perpetuity? No, I don't believe that even need-based quotas should exist in perpetuity. And I think that if the fruits of development, labor, and education can be spread quicker through more verifiable procedures and processes, then we may even come to a point where we will have egalitarianism, to the point where we will not need quotas. But to answer now, I hope I've been able to answer your question.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we can have a whole day's discussion on this. Mandal Commission has so much.
True. The idea per se of, I'm not against the idea per se of state intervention when it comes to lifting people out of poverty. So I am a progressive conservative, and I do believe that the state has a role to reach those that have been left out of the growth story or the development story. And I do believe that if you evolve a social justice architecture that is based on need and not on identity, we can really get far. I think all of us who have reached a particular position of financial security should be giving more, should be contributing more to our societies. We should be more philanthropic. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened to the point that we see in some other democracies. But I think we're evolving that ethos now. And if we can all give back to the system that we have taken from, I think these equities will be removed. And in an ideal world, you may not even need state intervention. Now, coming to your second question, it's a very, very important question. First of all, you're talking about style and not so much content. You had two questions really rolled into one. I'll address the first part of the question. Whether people should be opinionated or not. Now, I've never had a problem with opinion. In fact, my promo goes out by saying that I have an opinion and I'm going to express that opinion. Why don't I have a problem with opinion? Well, I work for a group called the Times of India. They bring out also a newspaper that I've worked for, and I've written leaders for the editorial page. What is that? That is an opinion.
Opinion.
Today,
yes.
In fact, on the front page of the Times of India, on any given day, there's something called the Times View. So you have a news report and you have a Times View. Now, why increasingly are we seeing the need for opinion? Especially opinion from credible sources, from credible media houses. Can I ask you a personal question, Jyotsna ji?
Sure.
When you get up in your morning, on any given day, do you open your WhatsApp first or do you look at the newspaper first?
I definitely look at the newspaper first, not the WhatsApp. I don't look into my phone WhatsApp till almost 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock. Then when you go on to your WhatsApp after reading the news from an authoritative source, you open the WhatsApp and you might be getting forwards of all kinds.
All kinds. That's a university by itself.
Some of those forwards masquerade as articles written by people quoting lots of facts. True? And you say, oh, I didn't know this. This makes a lot of sense. Now, what is this? This is unverified media. Now, if I were to just give you the news without making sense of it, you today who are receiving WhatsApp forwards, getting Facebook forwards, getting articles from unverified sources that are opinionated, by the way,
yes,
you will perhaps begin to form a warped opinion of the world around you, or an opinion that is being shaped by somebody who has an agenda to push. Now, when Rahul Shivshankar gets on Times Now, and this is what we agreed to do when I joined back Times Now with the larger management team, we said, what have we lost in the process? We have lost fact to rhetoric. The problem with opinion is, if it is not fact-based, then what is it? It's empty thought. It's hot air. So opinion by itself is not a bad thing. Opinion devoid of fact is a bad thing. That is rumor, gossip, fakery, what have you. Newspapers in the West that we hold up as the great Templar of journalism, like the New York Times, Washington Post, etc., what do? They endorse candidates for the presidency of the United States of America.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
Yes.
what is that, ma'am? That is an opinion.
It is. It is.
So you actually are consuming opinion every day. You consume it in print, but when someone tells it to you on TV, you
Okay.
you put your hands up and say, no, I don't want your opinion. Isn't that slight double standards?
Oh, yeah. That's exactly what my sister is justified too. And she said, the olden days, they were news readers. We are journalists. I said, okay.
Yeah. So now through the day, we give you the news. In fact, where do you get your news from? You are all people who are dedicated to careers. You can't be sitting in front of a television or opening a newspaper through the day. You get it through this.
Absolutely.
You get it through Google News, you get it through. So you know the news even before you come to me in the evening to watch my show, any other show at prime time. You have the news already. You know the basic facts of the news. Now you come to me like you would go to the edit page of a newspaper to find out what to make of this news, because in the middle of it, I have got 20 forwards. Many people are telling me different things, and each one of it is vying for my attention. So you then go and you listen to maybe me, who makes sense of the news for you. And I will give you an opinion at the beginning, but I never, ever deny you the opportunity of listening to other voices. So there'll be other panelists who have their point of view, and then they extend their point of view. I don't try to sum up a debate. I don't try to then thrust a point of view. I begin, I tell you, these are the facts. This is why, like a good lawyer, you can interpret the facts this way, and you can present a case. After that, please listen to the other voices and take away what you think appeals to you the most. So that is the difference I wanted to draw about the shade of opinion. Then comes about individual style. Now, unfortunately, India is a very noisy democracy, and you say that these shows sometimes sound like an argument. Well, we are argumentative people.
We are.
You look at the place where democracy is supposed to be practiced the best, which is the floor of parliament. There are constant arguments. And where did we borrow this from? From the Senate in Rome. Thank goodness we are not stabbing people in the back, but we do have a huge, voluble exchange of ideas, and people are passionate about their ideas. I cannot, beyond a point, stop people from being passionate about the ideas, and I'm not actually a fan of people who shout and declaim. We try to control them. We try to lower their fader. Anchors also need to then speak over those people. When they start speaking over those people, they speak louder, then you speak louder, you become loudest. Unfortunately, that is an issue. You go to other democracies, barring England, because if you were a journalist in England, I don't believe you would have much to do. But nonetheless, if you go to America, you see very argumentative commentary. You also have people who raise their voice at each other. But yes, I think we are a more noisy democracy, and we bring that noise into our studios. It is something that, of course, if it is not adding value to the argument, then obviously it's deleterious. It is not to be, appreciated. But if it is actually adding value to a conversation and making people heard, then I don't think we should have such a big problem with it. But I do take your point. Yes, of course, there are people who shout, and sometimes they become, they don't even follow the rules of dignified conduct, which cannot be defended,
Correct. Thanks so much. Thank you.
I hope I was honest.
Yes, you were.
Thank you. Thank you, Rahul. And now it's the turn of past Hyderabad Chapter Chair, Rajita Reddy.
Hi, Rahul. I really loved the way you had calm and logic in explaining, Jyotsna's question. Really,
Thank you so much.
It was good to hear that. Yes.
Kind of you.
So, Rahul, correct me if I'm wrong, but 8 out of 10 richest Americans owe their wealth to their talent and not to inheritance or, capital inherited.
Yes.
So, what would you? And the statistics are not the same in India. So what would you say? Adherence to shared rules, or to put it bluntly, towing the line seems the shortest way to the top of the rung, of the ladder. What is your take? And more importantly, what has been your experience in this regard?
America is a 400-year-old democracy. We're a democracy in progress. I remember reading a book about Theodore Roosevelt and Franklin Roosevelt, one of his cousins who, arguably were one of the greatest presidents of America. Do you know that they were manor born? They were born to riches beyond measure for their time. And they were contesting against individuals who were also born to riches beyond their time. Even in America, you had what were known as robber barons. You had capitalists who were part of long family traditions at the turn of the century. Over the last 100 years, that process has become democratized, as our politics has become democratized, as our institutions have become democratized, and as our democracies have become further democratized. Just to give you a small example, you quoted America. Can you tell me how many people of African-American descent or Indian-American descent are the richest 10 in America, ma'am?
I don't know the statistics, honestly.
Zero,
yeah.
So the African-American got the right to be an equal status stakeholder only in the 60s in America. Asians have had to wait for longer. So while you have seen a certain democratization in business circles in America, unfortunately, it hasn't kept pace with people's aspirations, especially those that don't belong to the white consensus. Let me put it like that. There is a different type of entrenched classism in America. It was at least till about 15, 20 years ago, very white male dominated. Even women, in fact, have taken time to break through the ceiling. So even a society like America is struggling very much right now to democratize the process of creating wealth, just to use that term. So social justice is still in progress. India is moving ahead. Obviously, because of inherent disadvantages. Remember, we were colonized for 250 years. I'm not at all trying to blame, again, the white person or the white Western civilization for our limitations. But you have to remember that we were stripped of all our resources. We had famines here because food was kept from us. A country with the greatest GDP in 1600s, 30% of the world's output came from India. Some people even put that number up to about 44%, 45%, was left with less than 1% of GDP. Mm-hmm. For every 1 rupee earned by the East India Company, they only gave back or reinvested 1 paisa in this country. 99 paisa went abroad, went to line and furnish the democracies and the lives of the British. So we really started with a massive disadvantage, and obviously wealth was concentrated in just a few families, and it is going to take some time for that to spread evenly. And that is really the level at which today we are seeing, to answer also the question that was posed by, I think it was Jyotsna ji a short while back, about the democratization of wealth in this country. And therefore, we require, positive discrimination, quotas, etc. even now. So it's a work in progress. And we should be proud that a large number of Indians, if you look at the top 100 list of Indians today, you will see a large number of self-made individuals also. I can't hear you. I think you've put your self on mute.
Ajita?
No. So what has been your experience with regards to this?
No, I
Do you
think
think
that,
adhering to rules is the best way?
sorry, I didn't get that.
You think adhering the rules, the shared rules, is the best way forward to be
I
able to
don't,
achieve?
no, I don't think that, look, crony capitalism has existed in every country in the world where individuals, think that, okay, if you just go along with the larger narrative and you toe the line, as you're saying, will succeed. But today, that's not the case. You have political leaders, you have captains of industry, you have, look at the Indian cricket team. It's the most visible corporation that or team at work that looks back at you. Where are people there towing a particular line?
Yeah.
There is enough diversity there to tell you that people who are today the captains of Indian team, both men and women, were not from, not those who have certainly towed the line or come from families that became rich and, extremely successful by towing the line.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Rahul. And another question, Rekha Lahoti, past chairperson, FLO Hyderabad, will place her query forward.
Hello, Rahul. It's been really very enriching and interesting hearing you. My question is, individual potential and performance are a result of both environmental and hereditary factors. In which case, is it that merit is already endowed and not earned? How do you explain this dichotomy?
Well, I think there are quite a few inbuilt assumptions there. As I'm saying today, and look, must add a big caveat. I think we had begun to turn the tide against both environmental and hereditary factors. As I told you, I started with the example of John Rawls, who said that if I were to be born on this earth, would I suffer if I were born in sub-Saharan Africa? And would I want to be born to parents living in sub-Saharan Africa? And he said, no. And that upset him. He says, why is it that we have a world that is so unequal? And his thinking, his process, his contribution to the way in which enterprise, capitalism today is shaped, has allowed for us to move beyond environmental and hereditary factors. Of course, we have also seen horrible crimes that have been committed on the back of hereditary factors. People say, or people said for a while, that individuals who were born in Europe, who were white, had hereditary advantages over the rest of humanity and therefore could become the ruling class. Look how both mendacious and how pernicious that thought process was, and how much we have actually beaten that back. Unfortunately, environmental factors are returning to haunt us. So if today you are living in an area which is affected by climate change or likely to be affected by climate change, your room for upward social mobility, enriching yourself, leading a comfortable life, your quality of life will certainly not be good. But hereditary, no, that would be a racist argument to make. I don't think that, yes, you could be born in a country or in a place where development is yet to flower in a way that would bring people advantages, but those are not to do with hereditary factors, those are to do with the weakness of institutions. But certainly environmental factors will begin to play a role, if they're not already beginning to play a role, in perhaps the story of human enterprise. Because if you happen to be in a place which has been able to maintain its environment better and avoid the catastrophes that are expected to hit us all because of climate change, you will obviously be at an advantage going forward. And that won't be true of vast swaths of humanity.
Unmute, Usha.
Yeah, thank you, Rahul. And now I will go over to Apurva Jain, Chairperson, FICCI Hyderabad, for her question.
Hi, Rahul. Good evening.
Good evening.
I would like to know if you ever felt you were the target of discrimination based on your belief or personal characteristic.
Not on the basis of my personal characteristic, though our family did go through a terrible tragedy. One half of my family came from the Kashmiri Hindu community, and I don't need to tell you the ineffable trauma that that community had to suffer, and we had to endure that also. But certainly, for my ideas, yes, we are discriminated against depending on which part of the media that, and I'm speaking for most colleagues today. Yes, beliefs, are becoming the target of vilification increasingly in our society, and it's disturbing because, as I said, some of the greatest social scientists, philosophers have said that the Indian story is about transformative and civilizing ideas. And I think our rich tradition, Indic tradition, Vedic tradition of Samvad teaches us that we must be open to another point of view. Today, if you espouse a conservative, progressive point of view, you are attacked for being a sympathizer of a particular regime, which I believe is absolutely not true. For example, if, and I have written, for example, for the Times of India or taken a position on Article 370, not because of my own personal experience, of course, that feeds into your thought process, but if you do espouse it, doesn't mean that you're supporting the BJP or the RSS on its outlook on Article 370. Anyone plainly reading the article and the way it has discriminated against some of the most disenfranchised in the country will tell you that it was an abhorrent piece of legislation that was brought in to appease a particular group of politicians, not even the people. If you stand for the Uniform Civil Code, which is hard secularism, you are then thought to be somebody who is aligned to a pernicious right-wing Hindu ideology, when I think that today we all know that personal laws cannot be part of the overall legal architecture of the state, because we are based on a complete separation, or at least we aspire to be complete separation of church and state, or religion and state. So if you are aspiring towards a progressive worldview, you cannot be held back by your religious beliefs. And if someone is advocating a legal system based on a universal civil code, doesn't make them a bigot. Let me give you a small example. In certain faiths, to be a person who shows a proclivity towards same-sex relationships is thought to be blasphemous. How is that compatible to the modern ideal of liberty or the right to choose? So if you then say that, look, laws that are born out of belief systems should be done away with, you can't be called a bigot. In fact, you should be lauded for being a progressive. But those nuances are often lost in a very, very complicated milieu where there are people, to address somebody who asked me that question, I think it was again Jyotsna ji, who said, a lot of noise. Yes, a lot of very vocal people make a lot of noise about the wrong things, and they confuse, confound, and mislead and misdirect. And that is where you begin to have the problem, because often they're the loudest voice drowning out the other voices, and you never really get to hear a person and their beliefs.
So true. Thank you.
Rahul, do you have 5 minutes more? Actually, our past president wants to ask another question.
So 5 minutes. I have a show at 5:15. So yes, 5 minutes. Yes, I will. I have to quickly go change my clothes, wear my tie.
And then after that question, I need to conclude and a vote of thanks. So should I take her question?
Yes, please. Thank you. Yeah.
Namita ji, please.
Yeah. Hello, Rahul. Look forward to see you in the evening on Times Now. You are a big thought leader and an influencer. And your political leaning or whatever, which side of the political...
no, I don't have political leanings. I only have ideological beliefs.
Okay. So ideological beliefs. So I would like to ask you, what will be your 3 suggestions or the 3 ideas that will to the Modi government to make India the India of our dreams, a progressive India, prosperous India, and a powerful India?
Okay, very good question, ma'am. My first and most important suggestion would be to allow the free flow of ideas, expressions, and choices. I think without that, India will be a very poor place. And I think that if Mr. Modi delivers on his commitment to Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas, India will aspire and will become one of the greatest nations on earth. Number two, we must focus on ensuring that the politics that have held us back, the politics of appeasement and vote bank, are done away with, that decisions and policies are taken with a larger constitutional fidelity, rather than to bend the structures to suit various interests. There is nothing wrong in trying to uplift people, but the motives should be clear. They should not be polluted or adulterated by your political interests. I know it's very ideal. It's a very idealistic thing to be saying. Politics doesn't quite work that way. But I think good politicians always aspire to take the conversation forward. And number three, most importantly, that I think we really need to look at is poverty alleviation on a war footing and reversing the effects of environmental degradation. And I think that whether it is the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, or it is the various schemes that the Prime Minister has launched, delivery must be made contingent upon need. And of course, delivery systems must be made immune, again, to the specter of corruption. So these are the three things that I hope we can, as words of advice, though I don't think he needs them or anyone needs them, but these are the three things that I constantly stress on in my commentary.
Right. Thank you so much. And then at a supplement question, what can we do to make India a progressive and powerful country? We the flow women.
Well, choose your leaders better. That's what, I was reading the works of a great thinker, Neil deGrasse Tyson. He is a cosmologist. He's taken on from where Carl Sagan ended off, the Cosmos series. He's one of the world's greatest astrophysicists. And he said, and someone asked him, if you were to be the Prime Minister or President of America for one day, what would you do? Now, many people would say, I will give thousands of dollars to every American citizen, etc. He said, I will just try to teach people to pick better leaders. That's all.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you. See you in the evening.
Thank you, Rahul, for being so forthright on where we stand in terms of adopting meritocracy as a way
Thank
of.
you.
It is abundantly clear that the pursuit of meritocracy is more difficult than it appears, but it doesn't mean the pursuit is futile. The cautionary lesson that came through is that practices implemented to increase fairness and equity need to be carefully thought through so that potential opportunities for bias are addressed fair and square. The interesting tidbits you shared about your journey to the top were enlivening too. So thank you once again. We will conclude.
Thank you.
With a vote of thanks. Bye.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. It was an honor and a pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you for the lovely questions. Thank you very much. God bless. Stay safe.
Uma, please give your vote of thanks.
A very good evening.
1 minute.
It is like how a majority of the viewers glued to one of the most respected and popular English TV channel of our country from Monday to Friday at 8 p.m. for 60 minutes. It is the same kind of feeling we had gone through past 1 hour. This is so wonderful and enlightening. Felt like saying, we want to listen and know more. Of course, there is always some time constraints and commitments to take care, isn't it? Rahul Shivshankar, who's a household name and known for his most popular debate, India Upfront, which focuses on hard facts, and a highly viewed and critically acclaimed program, Confront. You received critical acclaim for the coverage of one of the saddest days of our country's recent past, exactly 12 years back, the 26/11 Mumbai terror attack. I too is one of the many who have started following you from then, Rahul. Thank you very much for joining us today. Please continue with the same values of non-compromising in putting forward the hard facts. We all know journalism is what we need to make democracy works. Thank you once again for joining us today. My gratitude to the past chairs, past president, YFLO chair for asking through thought-provoking questions and navigating the program in a right and interesting direction. Thank you all. I thank Polemon Group, our gold sponsors, RBC Worldwide, our branding partners, and Pushpam Publications, our gifting partners. I appreciate and congratulate our team members and IT team for working hard and bringing out another wonderful program. I thank Flow Fraternity and all the viewers who joined today. Before we wrap up today's program, I'd like to reiterate once again that anyone with the ability and hard work can and should easily work themselves to the top. No matter what the background, people should have that privilege. Then only it will be able to achieve the egalitarian society. All of you have a wonderful week and stay responsible and stay safe. Thank you. I'd like to mention that a lot of interesting programs have lined up for the month of December. Please check and attend. Thank you so much.